presenter for today, a good friend of mine and just an amazing person. Just really, really full of ideas, an inventor from all the way back in the day. So I am very proud to introduce, he's going to be talking about his book, It's Time to Spill the Beans, the inventor, creator of Jelly Belly, David Klein.
Thank you, Daniel. This is my hat. If you'd like to take a picture of it. It weighs about 9 pounds.
Yeah, make sure you
That was made for me by the man that made Elvis's costumes.
Nice.
turn it up. Turn it up.
Hello there.
There we go.
Yeah. I started the company Jelly Belly in 1976. And I had $800 to my name. And there were no credit cards back in those days except for Diners Club. I don't know where MasterCard was or any of those Visa, they just weren't around. And I wouldn't have been able to afford to have a credit card back then. So I started with $800 and I was in a wholesale nut business. I was selling pecans to Famous Amos and people like that. And I started that business with no money. Every business I started with no money. And this is a great country. By the way, thank you, Daniel, for inviting me here. Really appreciate it. So I was in the wholesale nut business, and I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone. It was a Thursday night. Happy Days was on, and it was about 8:10 at night. And we always used to talk about businesses that we could do. And I said, I want to open up a jelly bean store. And he said, are you going to carry licorice in it and things like that? I said, no. It has to be special. I was selling Famous Amos at the time, and I said to myself, if he could make it with just chocolate chip cookies. He was at the corner of Sunset and Formosa. And great man, he passed away about a year or two ago. So I said, I want to open up a store just selling jelly beans. And I contacted it would have taken about $2 million to open up my own jelly bean factory. It takes a piece of machinery called a mogul, M-O-G-U-L, which is very expensive. And I had $800. I couldn't afford to open up a factory. And so I contacted a company. There was a small little company in Oakland, California called Herman Golitz. And I called him up at night, at 6:30 at night. The owner answered the phone, and I said who I was. I'm David Klein, and I want you to make for me as a contract manufacturer small jelly beans. I want them to be miniature, 400 to the pound, and I need them in flavors that have never been done before. And so he said, that sounds very interesting. And I said, I think this is really going to be big. Are you going to be able to keep up with any quantities, the orders that I give you? And he said, don't worry about it. We can do it. So I gave him flavors that I wanted. I wanted a watermelon one that was two-toned. It was green on the outside and red on the, I don't know what it was. It was like watermelon, red in the middle, who knows. And I want root beer, because root beer is my favorite flavor. And it was back then, before they made the juicy pears. Have anybody ever tasted Jelly Bellies?
Yeah.
Thank you. So, yeah, and then I had a vanilla one, but instead of calling it vanilla, I called it cream soda. So every flavor, I tried to change the flavor, the name of it. As a matter of fact, they made for me a strawberry, and a young man came in. We had a little store at 1824 West Main in Alhambra, and I had no money to sign for a lease. This was one of my customers that I was selling nuts to, walnuts and almonds. Fosselman's Ice Cream Parlor in Alhambra. Anybody ever been there? Nobody? The guy ended up blackmailing me, by the way. It's in the book. He called me up one day and he said, "How many partners do you have?" And I said, "Well, Cal is my partner." He said, "No, that's the wrong answer. I'm your third partner." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, I just," and he got really snippy. He said, "I filed for the California trademark for Jelly Belly." And I said, "How could you do that?" He said, "Well, I did it to protect my family." And so I said, "What do you want?" And he said, "I want to be guaranteed $64,000 a year for the rest of my life." And the story's in the book. You'll find out what happened on that. Anyway, so we had 8 flavors in the beginning. They were charging me 59 cents a pound, plus shipping from Oakland, which was about 4 cents a pound in those days. And when the business really got going,
Turn the light towards you.
hello. When the business really got going, I called up the owner of the company, Herm, and I said, "Herm, I need to talk with you." And he said, "What's it about?" I said, "Well, I want you to go up in price to me. I want you to charge me 69 cents instead of 59. And he said, "Let me get this straight. What's your angle? Nobody has ever asked for a price increase." I said, "Well, I'm making money, and I want to make sure that you make money on it." He said, "We've got 40,000 pounds coming down to you tomorrow on Crescent. You want it to go into effect immediately? That's going to be a $4,000 increase." I said, "Yes. You might as well go and increase it right now. I can handle it." And what happened was the product got so huge. First of all, they had told me that they could make any quantity that I wanted of the product. And then after I was in People magazine, O.J. Simpson was on the cover, and I was in a bathtub of jelly beans. And Herm, the owner of the company, told his sales manager as soon as he saw that, he said, "Dave has blown the company. You can't," my chest was exposed and I was having jelly beans sticking on it and everything. And he said to his sales manager, he said, and this is in the book too, by the way, "I need you to sign up customers to use the mogul because we're not going to have any more Jelly Belly business." And the mogul, he didn't tell me that he was doing that. And for months I was out there getting orders. I was on Mike Douglas twice. Once I was on with Henry Winkler, and once I was on with Anthony Newley. Anthony Newley was the co-host. And Anthony Newley was the man that composed Candyman, the Candyman. And I was running down the aisle. By the way, you can see this free on YouTube. It's Candyman, the David Klein story. It's about an hour long. Weird Al is in it. My son is in it, who produced it. And my son works for Disney as an animator. He's been there for 34 years. He designed Olaf in Frozen. Yeah, he created the look of Olaf. Yeah, brilliant young man. I also have a daughter who was in commercial real estate in the Inland Empire. And so I was out there getting orders, not knowing that they had signed over production for candy corn. Because that's what they were known for before I approached them, was candy corn. In fact, they're probably one of the largest candy corn producers. They sold out about 2.5 years ago to a company based in Italy called Ferrara, who also owns Ferrara. And their parent company does, last year they did about $18 billion, which is not a bad sum of money, 18 and a half actually, $billion. So I didn't have enough production. I should have gone to another candy company to have it made for us, but I was loyal to them, and I paid the price for being loyal. And Herm called me up one day, and he said, "We're coming to town." And I said, "I'll pick you up at the airport." And he said, "It's not that kind of a meeting." And I said, "Well, what kind of meeting is it?" He said, "We're coming to town to buy the trademark, and we're not going to leave until we do." And I heard from his sales manager. I said, what if I don't sign?" He said, "You don't want to do that." He said, "We're prepared to go back to Oakland and cut you off immediately. You won't get another pound from us. And we know that you will sue us, but by the time it gets to court, you'll be broke." And that's in the book also. I'm 79 years old. At this stage in my life, there's no point in keeping any secrets anymore. So if you guys want to know anything, I will share my whole life with you.